is Lauren Thomas, who's going to talk to you all about how to eat right for a marathon.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi guys, I'm Lauren. I'm a sports dietitian at Nutrition Energy, which is a private practice just down the road. We work with a ton of marathoners and triathletes all the time, talking about daily diet, training diet, marathon day, making sure that you're hitting your needs, your goals. Nutrition, as Gil said, can really make or break a lot of your training, how good you're gonna feel, your recovery, all that good stuff. So I wanted to make sure you had a pretty good basis going into the summer. You know, training is only going to pick up from here. So we want to make sure, especially if this is your first marathon, having some sense of what's going on and how your needs change as you're now an endurance athlete and maybe you weren't before. So before I start, I know some of you were at the basics clinic where I think the other Lauren, who's also a dietitian, talked about kind of overall general nutrition stuff. Before I jump into more the sports aspect of everything, does anyone have like big topics or little topics for that matter that they want to make sure that I cover today? Whether it be like eating throughout the day or drinks or this or that. I mean, anything on your mind before I get going that you want to make sure?
Special diets, anyone in vegan, things like that. This is the time to ask those questions.
Anemia?
Great, okay. Yeah,
Gluten-free?
okay. For sure. Anything else? Okay. I mean, as things come up, please feel free, like shout out, raise your hand. I want this to be like a conversation because there's a lot to know about nutrition, as you can tell from my handouts. I was writing them yesterday and I was like, this is the third page, I have to stop now. So, you know, I apologize if it's information overload, but hopefully it'll at least get you going and get you thinking in the right mindset. So what I decided to do today was really talk about the common kind of nutrition mistakes that I see most common in the office. We have a ton of athletes that we work with, and you tend to see a lot of the same things going on. So what I did is kind of put that into this handout of the top 5 common sports nutrition mistakes, just of things to at least be aware of going into training, and then what we can do is kind of apply them as we go. So first off, I mean, when is everybody running? Are people running in the mornings, in the evenings?
Early morning.
Early morning, okay.
Evenings.
Okay, so a mix of everything. So my early morning workout, okay. Are you getting up, putting on your shoes and getting out the door? Are you having breakfast? What's going on?
I was getting up 15 minutes before, getting dressed and getting out the door, but I've started to eat at least a piece of bread and peanut butter to hold me over.
Oh, all right. I like to hear that.
I need that.
You started to feel a difference of when you did?
Yeah, I was hitting a wall before. I was feeling like really nauseous when I was done. And now with at least a piece of bread, it's not.
Get something in.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you? Anything?
A quick cup of coffee.
Okay.
I'm usually up at about an hour before I run.
Yeah.
A waffle with peanut butter. Something like that really helps.
Cool. Okay. And how about your like long runs on the weekends? Has anyone played around with eating beforehand? Have they found something that works or doesn't work?
Confession, I can't eat before I run.
Okay.
I get sick.
Okay, and that's probably one of the biggest things we see a lot. Stomach feels upset, cramps, just not a good situation, right? And that's something that, like I said, we see a lot and we have to troubleshoot before marathon day, like absolutely, because you cannot run a marathon on an empty stomach. It's just, as much as we would love to, is gonna be really hard. So now is the time to start playing with that. And our first, kind of top 5 thing is skipping that pre-workout meal or snack. Now, the reason we need that snack or meal is because if we go into a run and we don't have any available glucose, which is sugar, carbohydrate source, our body is more prone to break down muscle as energy. So what we're going to be doing is ending up losing muscle as we go along because your body's trying to catch on to anything that it can do to create energy. We also have a really hard time burning body fat without carbohydrate alongside it, right? So it's not like we can just get up and run, and it's going to be really hard for us to just tap into those fat stores without a carb source. The last reason is carbohydrates are our energy. So, I mean, can someone name a carbohydrate for me?
Right, bananas.
Banana, pasta,
Piece of bread,
bread,
bagel.
awesome, bagel, waffle, oatmeal. So those are all really good carbohydrate sources. So if you are having trouble taking in something before, I would say the first thing to do is look towards a liquid. So have some Gatorade, have some juice, have something that's very easily settled on your stomach, to at least give something to that immediate like blood sugar, okay? And then I would say play around with having very easily digestible carbohydrates beforehand. So the toast and peanut butter is a fantastic example. Some people might have better chances digesting that peanut butter than others. But especially for long runs, and I think, I do get into this, but on those Saturday longer runs, we are gonna want a little bit of protein with that. So peanut butter is a really good way to get something satiating. Because if you're out there running for 20 miles, you're gonna get hungry by the end of it. It's just a long time to run. So that's it, kind of a good example of what you're doing now, and you're kind of used to it come race day. If it is just a short run, some crackers, a handful of cereal, you don't have to have a full meal. So I would play around with that, especially you guys who are having a little bit of trouble eating beforehand. And keep a log if you can, what feels okay, what doesn't. And if you're still having trouble, we can always do, more individualized kind of troubleshooting on what's going on, because some people just have more sensitive stomachs than others, which is fine, it's just we have to figure out what works for you. Questions on that? Yeah?
So some days I'll have like an apple before, some days I'll have like a protein bar.
Okay.
Either of those things are okay?
So I would gear more towards the apple. So the thing about protein, yes, it's great, we need it, and I'll definitely talk about that, but pre-workout, we're going to be able to use carbohydrates a lot faster than we are going to be able to use protein. So you can eat that protein bar, you're not going to get the energy until 2 hours later though. So it's like, not going to help us too much. But a granola bar, an apple, and same with like those evening runners. If you are leaving work and going for a run, grab a banana, grab a granola bar, pretzels, whole grain crackers, graham crackers, I don't know, any of that stuff. Very easy on the stomach, that's what we want to go for. Make sense to everybody? Questions on that? And I kind of said this here, the specific amount and the specific type of carb or food in general is going to depend on your individual body size, on your gastrointestinal tolerance, on how far you're running, on your pace, on all of that. So it is, as with most of nutrition, it is an individual thing. One thing I will say just quickly now, the further, the longer you have before you start to run, the more you can technically eat because your body has more time to digest, right? So if you're getting up super early and you don't run until 10 o'clock, you could probably have a full bagel and peanut butter and a banana and this and that. But if you're running within the hour, I'd say, well, let's stick to just the banana. So keep that in mind as well. And again, that's all based off of individual body size and needs. So, if you tend to be having trouble, you can kind of troubleshoot it from there. Questions on pre-workout fueling? It's important. I don't want to miss it. Some ideas. All right. So our next flip side of that is post-workout. Who's heard of post-workout recovery shakes or drinks or bars or, that window that you have to have something? Yeah, I feel like that's pretty mainstream a lot. I would say protein is pushed in the media a lot. Protein, and yes, we do need protein post-workout, but we probably don't need as much as you think we do. We also need a lot of carbohydrate post-workout. So, if we go back to the example of the morning exercisers, right? So you get up, you have a piece of toast, you go for your run, you come back. Do you have breakfast? Yeah. No?
Not till a little bit later, when I get to work.
Yeah, sure, right? You're rushing to get out the door, things going on. Let's say you guys finish a run in the park on a weekend, you have to get home, but home is 45-minute subway train, whatever. So a lot of times we end up missing that really critical post-workout time to refuel. Now, why that's important is your muscles are gonna soak up that protein about 50%, protein and carbohydrate, excuse me, about 50% more efficiently than if it was 2 hours after. So if it's within that 30 minutes, you're gonna start to feel a heck of a lot better, okay? Soreness will be decreased. Your muscles, every time we run, they like break down a little bit. So what that's doing is bringing it back up. You know, think of, well, this is kind of hydration too, but like a grape versus a raisin, right? So we always want our muscles to be satiated with hydration and protein and all that good stuff. So that 30-minute recovery window is probably one of the most important things that you guys can pay attention to, okay? If you are gonna be finishing your run and having a meal, that counts as the recovery snack or meal, right? You don't have to have a protein shake and then a breakfast or a dinner, unless it's gonna be a lot longer afterwards. Questions, yeah?
Any foods we should avoid after, like very salty foods, or is there anything that we should avoid specifically after the run?
After the workout, you know, I would actually avoid high-fat foods because they are pretty slow to digest. They can impede the absorption of the protein and the carbohydrate to your muscles. So that's the whole point of this post-workout snack or meal, right? It's to start to refuel. We have carbohydrate stores in our body that's called glycogen, and that's really what we run on, especially when we're running long. So we want to make sure we start to refuel those as soon as we can so you're ready for the next day's workout. I'll also find that people come in, and I think I talk about this later, but people come in starving because they're marathon training, and if they're missing this post-workout, like recovery, snack, drink, whatever, that's where a lot of the hunger is coming from. It's like we can nip it in the bud early, post-workout. So what would be some examples of post-workout things that you've heard of or done, or maybe even if we're not super healthy?
Bagels.
Bagel?
Bagel.
Mm-hmm. It's a good carb
Chocolate
source.
milk?
Chocolate milk.
That's in the ads all the time.
Yeah.
Is that something that is good?
It actually is good.
It tastes good.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Absolutely. So the tricky thing about chocolate milk is it has that perfect combination of carbohydrate to protein that we're looking for post-workout. We're actually looking for about 3, you know, if we were to do the ratio, it's about 3 carbohydrates to 1 protein. So more carb than protein. So milk has protein and carb in it, just naturally. When you add the chocolate, you get more carb, more sugar. So then it's perfect. Grab it and go, you're done.
Can you do like chocolate soy milk? Or,
Yeah,
I mean, if
totally.
someone is intolerant, does it have the same ratio?
Absolutely, yeah, soy milk's a great kind of supplement there. I wouldn't say do like a, I don't know if they even make this, but like a chocolate almond milk wouldn't have protein, so it wouldn't really help us, but soy milk is absolutely a good idea.
They do make a chocolate almond milk.
Yeah.
My kids
There you
drink
go.
it. My kids drink it, yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, they do. It's in a carton and a half gallon.
Yeah.
You buy it.
There you go. Yeah, it's just not too much protein in there.
How about the juice press smoothies? I usually get one of those after my run on
Uh-huh.
Saturday.
What's in there?
It's like, get one has like coconut oil,
Okay,
agave, banana,
okay.
like strawberries, blueberries.
So it sounds like we're getting, you know, fruits are a great source of carb, so that sounds good to me so far. What my big question would be is where's the protein?
Protein, I usually have like a Quest bar on the side.
Okay,
Supplement.
bingo, you're done. That's perfect, absolutely. And honestly, bagel and some egg, or if it's like brunch time, you just finished a long run, that's perfect. You know, we have a decent amount of carbohydrate with a little bit of protein. So start to kind of figure out what works for you. I would say make sure even those shorter runs during the week though, that you are being conscious of that. And that might be stashing some granola bars, power bars, whatever in your bag for post-workout or when you're leaving the gym, just to make sure you can get something in before you get home and get to have a meal, whether it's breakfast or dinner.
Where do eggs fall into this specifically? I know they're a protein, but do they?
Yeah.
Is it considered only a protein?
Absolutely, yeah, pretty much just the protein. Does have some fat in it, but definitely a good source of vitamin D and, you know, I think a great protein source. There's really no carbohydrate in there naturally.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so that would always be a good protein source.
Is it okay to have kind of a low grain diet but eat more fruits instead? And like sweet potatoes and brown rice?
Absolutely,
Paleo.
yeah. So that's a great question. I think, you know, what that taps into is how much carbohydrate we need throughout the day and what sources of carbohydrate we need, right? And this is kind of more towards that general daily diet versus sports, like pre-post workout. As long as you're getting the carbohydrate, I'm okay, like we're okay with that, you know? The big thing, I think, takeaway is that as athletes and as runners, you need to get in more carbohydrate than a normal, typical person walking down the street. Those normal people that jump from marathons. But, you know, carbohydrates, they can be fruits, they can be sweet potatoes, they can be squash, corn, beans, peas, quinoa, brown rice. You know, it doesn't have to be bread or pasta or those typical carbohydrate sources that you think about. So I think that brings up a really good point, and there's no downside to that if you wanted to focus more on that. And that's kind of similar to that gluten-free idea, you know, certainly doable, just we have to be more conscious of, are you getting enough of the carbohydrate, because you are more limited in your options. But, you know, certainly okay to rely on starchy vegetables as the carb source there. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a cutoff of when you need to refuel? Let's say you're just going out to run 3 miles or 4 or 5. Is
Right.
it necessary after that to refuel, or can you pretty much get away with it and wait for the next meal?
Yeah, that's a great question, absolutely. I generally, rule of thumb, say anything over 45 minutes. So that depends on your pace, and it depends also on your effort level. I would say if you're doing a hard speed work effort, you know, but you don't necessarily cover that much mileage, but you're running up hills over and over again, like you might need to refuel, whereas if you were just doing an easy 3 miles. So it definitely, you know, can depend. I wouldn't say if you're going out for a very easy 3 miles, you need to refuel. Wait till your next meal, you'll be okay. But if it is going to be over that 45 minutes, I would recommend that's the time. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Is there another question?
Yeah, and maybe I missed this because I came in a little bit late, but the carbs are basically turning sugar in your body?
Yes.
All right, so a lot of like the sports drink actually have the sugar in it. Are they cutting through all that? Like if we were to have like a quick candy bar or something in an emergency, would that still be doing the same thing, or are we doing more damage than good?
So, okay, so for when would you be having this is like just during the day, or this is
or
during?
maybe even, you know, I haven't talked about it, but maybe even in the I'm thinking actually if the only thing you could do is, okay, if you can't do the gluten or something and you need to get some fuel in your body.
Is
either
that
before, during,
counterproductive?
or after?
Or-
I
okay.
guess, I don't know.
Yeah, so that kind of, yeah, that's a good question, because yes, you will get the sugar, right? You'll essentially get the carbohydrate. But what we want is always choosing carbohydrates that are whole grains or fiber-rich carbohydrates, because they're digested very differently.
Oh,
So, yeah, so what happens when we get that simple sugar, which is what's in Gatorade or in a candy bar or in, I don't know, jelly beans, whatever, right? Kind of hits our blood sugar, and if we don't use it right away, it's going to be stored. So if we're sitting at our desk and drinking Gatorade, it's not really going to do us that much good, because we're not really using that sugar as, you know, we're not running. But if you're on the run, you absolutely need to make sure you're getting in that sugar. So I think, you know, I would veer more towards reaching for things that are going to have that nutritional density than something to just kind of like fill the carb void.
But if you're like in the middle of a run and you're really feeling down, then you can throw that in there, but it's not gonna.
Right, that's kind of the simple sugars that we do want at that time. Absolutely, and fueling during is something we're going to talk about, because I think that's a huge, you know, thing to make sure you guys have a good sense of. Questions on recovery snacks, meals, or anything else? It doesn't have to be that.
I know you were saying that like you covered this in another thing, but you're talking about like how much carbs versus protein. Just like in the general day, what would you recommend that ratio be?
Absolutely. Great question. So for runners, generally, we say about roughly 60% of your daily intake should be carbohydrate. Again, that can be fruits, vegetables, you know, beans, quinoa, these other things. Doesn't mean a million slices of bread. And then about 15 to 20% protein, and then the rest is gonna be fat, so 20 to 25% healthy fats, which is that avocado, olives, olive oil, salmon, right? So healthy fats are important for anti-inflammation in your body. As runners, we all are gonna be kind of increasing inflammation just because your muscles are breaking down. So getting in those foods, those omega-3 rich foods, are gonna be beneficial. So that's that 25%. And protein-wise, you know, chicken, turkey, fish. If you're vegan, if you're vegetarian, there's certainly more than enough protein sources as well. That's certainly fine. You can train for a marathon on a vegetarian diet. It's not a problem, but you have to be smart about it. And then the rest of the 60% would be those carbohydrates. Does that help?
And I mean, this is probably maybe more specific to me than other people, but I also weight train.
Okay.
Does that affect the ratios?
It might bump up the protein needs a little bit, but otherwise, as long as the weight training and the running is like buffered by the right nutrition, then I wouldn't say as a general diet it would have to change too much, except maybe calories more because you're burning through more. We're good on that stuff. Okay. Sorry, I'm jumping around. I just want to make sure I kind of hit everything that we need. And we'll go back to that daily diet a little bit because I think that comes into play as miles go up and you're hungry all the time. So, okay. So the next kind of common thing I see, and I actually saw 3 people today with it today, so I was like, this is perfect. Not hydrating properly during the run. Now, this weather is really tough for running, as I'm sure you have all felt this week, right? You're slogging through it, it's very humid, your bodies aren't necessarily adjusted to it yet. Your hydration needs are like through the roof. So you need to make sure you have a plan for hydrating and you understand why you have to do it and how much you need of it. Who can tell me the benefit of drinking water or Gatorade or fluids on the run?
Benefit?
Anyone? Yeah.
You need it.
You need it. You just need to.
Muscles,
Helps you
like the
sweat.
electrolytes damping, or-
Mhm. I hear electrolytes, I hear cramping.
Oh, yeah, Charlie Walker.
Mhm.
Muscle cramps.
Yeah.
We have a very smart group of runners.
Yeah, I know. You guys are great. I love it. Yeah, so it regulates your body temperature. That's probably one of the biggest ones, right? So sweat is our body's way of cooling ourselves off. And we need to make sure that we're replenishing. We can't replenish everything we sweat out, but we want to make sure we're getting that baseline because cramping can happen, right? It can kind of mess with clarity and brain functioning too if you're super dehydrated. And also electrolytes, which some of you brought up. Salt, if you've like kind of, gotten into that a little bit, that's going to be critical, especially because we're training over the summer and it's tougher. So the first thing I would say is, has anyone gotten like a handheld water bottle or a fuel belt or any of that stuff yet? I see nods. Yay, that's so exciting. Good. So our goal is to be getting in about 24 ounces of fluid per hour of running. I do think I wrote that on here. Now, that's a very baseline, generalized kind of equation, but it is a minimum. And that's a lot, if you think, this is 32, but like getting up to this for each hour of running, it's a lot of drinking to do. So what I recommend is every 15 to 20 minutes, like setting your watch timer, or just if you're running in a group, kind of, being aware of it and telling everybody else. We want about 4 to 6 ounces every 15 to 20 minutes. That's better than like stopping for after an hour, chugging 24 ounces and then going, because you're not going to feel so good when you do that. Yeah.
I have a question regarding water. So it's on
Okay.
topic, but
Yeah.
it's to do with the actual marathon day.
Yes.
I'm presuming, like all the other races, there'll be water stations every mile.
Yes.
Yes.
And how many, in your opinion, how many cups of water should I be drinking? And should I be drinking every mile or
Yeah.
every third mile? second
Awesome
mile,
question.
or-
Awesome question. I love it. You're thinking ahead. Every mile.
Every mile. at
Starting
least
right
one.
away. Like
At least one.
at least one. Yep. So one is probably going to be 3 to 5 ounces. I don't know. It depends on what cup you grab, right? We can get into if we want you to choose Gatorade or water, but most likely it's gonna be a mix of the two. And the most important thing I can say is start early, start at mile 2. As soon as you get off that bridge and there's a first water stop, get some. You're not gonna be thirsty yet, but it's gonna come back to get you.
Yeah, let me just clarify, there will be water stations as soon as you get over the bridge, because you're still on the bridge at
Right.
mile 1, so we don't have one at mile 1. But then there'll be every mile, and they're usually, if possible, on the course on both sides of the street, but they are long, 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 long tables.
Right.
Each table has both water and Gatorade. So as soon as you see a table, don't think you have to go right there. You can keep running and get it in the middle of the table or at the end of the table. And it's very funny because you will actually hear the crunching of the cups before you actually get to the water station. It's like, oh, okay, there must be water coming. And the trick, you'll talk about how to get the water, but the trick is to grab that cup, squeeze the top, and then sip. Because if you just grab that whole cup and do this, it's gonna go on you, it's gonna go on the person next to you. So that's the big takeaway, squeeze the top and then sip. And then also the other polite runner thing is look before you toss that cup.
Please.
Throw it down, don't throw it like that because you'll get the person behind you. So now you can talk to them about how much water that sip out of the cup actually goes.
No, that's so, and I would practice it honestly, because like, you do it a few times and you just splash yourself with water. So we want you to feel really good about doing that, knowing you can actually drink the water instead of just get it on your face, which could be refreshing too, but not what we're trying to do. So probably, like I said, at least 1 cup at each station. What that leads us into is that everybody has individual sweat rates, okay? So some people will finish, a workout and be totally drenched, and people barely are sweating. And that's really where we have to start individualizing how much fluids you're taking in. I had someone today who sweat 2.5 liters every hour, which is crazy if you can think about that. If you're out there for several hours, that's a lot. I mean, the average athlete is about 1 liter an hour, so that's a lot.
How do you determine how much you sweat?
Great question. So there's a handy thing called a sweat test. And I don't know if anyone's heard of this before, and you can kind of play around with it on your own. We generally take our athletes through it if they're in the office, but what you do is you weigh yourself before a run, you weigh yourself after. Add in if you're drinking anything and like ounces of water or fluids that you might take in. For every pound you lose, let's say I'm 120 before and 115 after, I lose 5 pounds, right? That's actually really common for a run, for an hour run, okay? We're gonna take that 5 pounds, multiply it by 16 ounces, and because we're good at math, can do that for me. And that's the amount of, wait, hold on.
80
Right,
ounces.
okay, thank you. So that's 80 ounces of hydration, of water that we needed to be taking in during that run. So that is specific to you, and that's your now sweat rate, yeah.
So the goal is to weigh the same when you start, and then basically weigh the same when you end after a long run, or
So that's
is that what you're saying?
almost impossible, but we're
Trying to come close to it?
Yeah, we're trying to minimize the damage.
Okay.
Because, right, so 16 ounces per pound lost will at least give us like a minimum, right? It's pretty much impossible, like that 2.5 liters of fluid guy today, like he can't drink that much when he's running, it's just not possible. So what we need to do, and I'm gonna talk about this in a second, but we need to play with the electrolytes because that influences the sweat rate. But for now, just be conscious of maybe play around with that yourself. Start to see if you're seeing these really big gaps in weight pre and post run, and kind of be conscious of maybe that 24 ounces isn't enough for you per hour. And that's where if you start to feel any signs of dehydration, whether that's cramping or nausea or just general fatigue or dizziness, maybe either come in to talk to us or do some research or kind of figure out what's going on, because hydration can really make or break a race. And it's also just as an aside, the one thing that I see influences stomach upset the most. Pretty much 99% of people that come in with GI issues on the run are dehydrated, because the blood's in your legs, not in your stomach. So if you don't have anything in your stomach like water or fluids keeping the blood in there, we're gonna be stuck trying to digest a gel or a goo or whatever else. That makes sense. So, very important. Can anyone tell me like what an electrolyte is, or an example, or just know that they're salt? Lovely, perfect. And that's probably the biggest one that we need to think about. As I wrote here, you can lose over 1,000 milligrams of sodium an hour in your sweat. So it's just in your sweat, right? And sometimes, I don't know if anyone's finished a run and had salt like on their face or on their, yeah, totally happens to me all the time. So what that's a sign of is that we need to make sure we're replenishing that salt, because without the salt, our body can't absorb the water. So we can't have one without the other. So I would say anytime you are running in a hot or humid environment, or if you start to have a long run that's over an hour, we're probably going to need to start to get some electrolytes in you. That can come through Gatorade, totally fine, totally awesome. It can come through salt tablets, and you might kind of venture into that as well. There's a lot of different brands that basically it's salt, it's like table salt in a pill. And what that can do is start to replenish. Again, we can never hit that 1,000 milligrams per hour, but we can get close.
If you're taking a gel, you wouldn't need a salt tablet as well, though, right?
You might. If you're a salty sweater, absolutely. But I would say the biggest thing is take the gel. You can always, they have gels that are saltier than others, or like different shot blocks flavors that are higher sodium than others. So like pay attention to the sports nutrition product that you're buying. Have the gel with water. We never want to do a gel with Gatorade because it's just too much sugar. That's probably another really big takeaway. You might have learned that the hard way, but
You want to wait till you're at the water station.
Yes.
Gatorade. Don't be taking the gel with the Gatorade.
absolutely.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
For a New York City marathon,
Yeah.
how many gel packs would you recommend? Everyone's different? Or?
Well, yeah, so, that's also a really good question. You guys are awesome. I know there's so much to talk about, sorry. The fueling in terms of gels and chumps and beans and all of those products, the good thing is they're all similar in terms of what they're going to give you, right? So a gel is going to be equal to a serving of the blocks, which is equal to a serving of this and that. But frequency and, is going to depend on, first of all, your stomach. Second of all, rule of thumb is after 45 minutes, we want to start fueling every 30 to 60 minutes. So generally every 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes is a good time to start fueling, to have a gel or to have some kind of product. That would be the rule of thumb. Again, that can certainly be changed. And the other thing to think about is if you're like, gels do not work with me, you can do pretzels, you can do candy. Like I have people do all sorts of stuff. Whatever works with your stomach, it's fine. Just make sure it's a very easily digestible carbohydrate. Yeah.
This isn't related to the gels, but what's your opinion about like vitamin water versus Gatorade?
I would stick with the Gatorade. I don't believe vitamin water has enough salt in there. Again, it's like, yes, Gatorade for people who aren't running isn't necessarily the best thing, but it is formulated specifically for people who are doing endurance sports. So I would say because of the breakdown of the electrolytes in there and the carbs, probably a better option.
Actually, with the Gatorade, I often water it down because it's way too sweet for me. Is there any disadvantage to doing it? I mean, obviously you're getting less, but.
Yeah, I mean, you just would probably need to have a little bit more of it because it's watered down, but there's certainly no problem, in doing that. And the marathon will have Gatorade on the course. Is it Gatorade Endurance? I think, yeah. So does anyone know what that means?
More salt. It's yellow.
More salt, yeah.
Same color at every station.
So it's double the salt, which is awesome because we're all sweating, and that will help us take care of that sodium. So oftentimes that can, unless you're a super salty sweater, that can take out that need for extra additional salt supplementation. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Would you recommend then staying away from like the G2, which is like the low calorie?
Yeah.
Go full Gatorade.
Go full Gatorade.
And like water it down.
Do
I
it
just
up.
find it really sweet.
Yeah.
So I've been buying the G2, but
Okay.
regular Gatorade's better.
Yeah,
I can water it down a little bit, it's probably a little better.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, because, we need the calories. That's what it comes down to. We want to be hitting 100 to 200 calories an hour when we're running. And if we do a G2, it's lower calorie, right? So we just need more of it. And that can get a little tricky. So, yeah, go ahead.
For the salt tablets, should you take them before you run? Like if we have a long run, should we take them before or just during the run?
That's also probably an individual thing, but if you're a very salty sweater and it's a very humid day, yes, I would take them before.
What if you're not a salty sweater? Like, what if
Yeah.
you don't know?
You don't know. You'll find out.
Well, what would the effects of not needing it, like what would happen if I took it and I didn't need it? Not much.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No downside, in other words.
Unless you're probably salt.
Right, right.
Does it affect your sodium intake? Like if you have high blood pressure, does it affect that?
I mean, if you look at think about what you're losing, right? If you're out there for a couple hours, you're losing 3,000, 4,000 milligrams of sodium. It's not going to affect that. And again, that can be more of an individual thing depending on if there's something really concerning that we need to look at. But in general, the losses are so great that supplementing, with, again, these salt pills are maybe 300 milligrams. It's not a ton. And again, for the normal population, I wouldn't say add salt to a lot of things, but for you guys, your salt needs are gonna go up. So be aware of that. And same with post-run, when you're having a post-run meal. Get something salty, start to replenish that salt in your food.
Yeah, and just to clarify, in the marathon, if you want to start practicing, we use Gatorade G Series 2 in the lemon lime flavor. So that's what will be at every table. So if you want to start practicing and see if you like it, that's what you'll be drinking.
I also remember, I think there's bananas at the end of the course, like mile 23 or something.
Yeah, they usually do bananas, sometimes they do oranges, yeah, and there's a power bar station, a power gel station, where you can get power gel.
Like in the middle of the
Towards the
course?
end.
Towards the end.
Yeah, so, and I think my last thing is doing nothing new on race day, so we'll talk about that, but maybe try some power gels during training. Just if you are gonna rely on that aid station of getting a gel, make sure your stomach can tolerate it. And even if it's the same flavor as the, Cliff gel, it might still affect you differently. So just try it out.
This is actually a great weekend to try it because we're doing, I think, up to 14 miles.
Yeah.
So perfect time to break out a gel, break out a goo, see how you like them. Bring some water with you. John, will we have water along the way or just?
At the start and finish.
At the
And
start
there
and
is
finish.
some along the West Side Highway at
There's
fountains.
water fountains along the West Side Highway, so you don't really have to carry water with you on Saturday, but it's a perfect time to test out some goos and some gels and some fueling.
And you can go to Jackrabbit or, any of those stores in the city and, feel free to try different stuff and figure out what works for you. What works for your running buddy not necessarily is gonna work for you. So be conscious of that. Everybody has their own tolerance for stuff. So you'll find what you like, you'll find your flavor, and you're good, But
Buy a lot of it.
yeah, stock up, order on Amazon. So yeah, definitely now is the time to figure that out. So please take advantage of this weekend. That's perfect, especially because I think it'll be hot. So it'll really kind of challenge that hydration, things that we're talking about. Any more questions on fueling during the run?
It's also a perfect time at the end of your race to have something in the backpack, to
Totally.
get you through the next meal.
Yeah.
I think they're going straight to they're doing a social.
Oh, a social?
Yeah, post the race. Or the run.
Perfect.
Yeah, but if you have to get right home, put
Yeah.
something in your backpack.
Yeah. Yeah, again, just keep granola bars in there, throw a chocolate milk in there, get a smoothie on the way home. These can be pretty simple solutions, but it's the planning that has to happen just to make sure that you're not stuck. Perfect.
What if you're prone to cramping on long runs?
Great.
Salt tablets?
Salt tablets and hydration, absolutely.
Okay.
It's generally more so the sodium.
It's cramping in the hamstrings and the quads more than
Yeah.
GI. So
Yeah. salt. Salt. I feel like I say that all day. But yeah, I would definitely recommend, either making sure you're getting enough sports drink, like Gatorade Endurance or something like that. But if you are doing water, make sure you are supplementing with electrolytes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. So our next common mistake is saying, well, I ran 14 miles on Saturday, so I'm going to have dessert every night this week. We're all guilty of it. It's okay. But, definitely I think people come in being like, I'm training for a marathon. I thought I'd be in like the best shape of my life, but I'm gaining weight. And it's very easy to do because we're hungry a lot because we're burning through a lot of calories. So not only the weight thing, but just in terms of that balance of daily diet that we kind of briefly talked about before. That's so important to keep the hunger at bay. I would say, eating consistently during the day is probably the number one thing I can say. Eating every 3-4 hours. That's going to mean an afternoon snack, even if you're not hungry, maybe a mid-morning snack. It can be an apple and peanut butter, it can be a Kind bar, it can be, carrots and hummus. Like, it can be a lot of different things, but we need to make sure that you're planning ahead for that. So when the hunger strikes, you have a plan versus saying, well, what's in the office cabinets, it's, who knows, cookies or I don't know, something that might not be so good for you and isn't going to make you feel any better. That's also the biggest thing, right? We want your energy to stay high, and when you're training a lot and you're running a lot and you're tired, it's going to come from nutrition. So I did bring some food samples, if we want to call it that. Basically, they're food models of portion sizes because I think that's really important too. Sure, I can say 60% carb and protein and fat, but what does that actually look like? And I would say probably the biggest thing that I see a lot is a lot of protein at once. So if we look at this lovely appetizing looking burger, this is about 3-4 ounces. So it's very thin, if anyone can see that. I mean, if we think about a typical burger that we all eat over 4th of July, it was probably 2 or 3 times this size. It's very rare that portions are actually, the servings we get are the portions that we need. There's a very big difference between that. For example, this is 3 ounces of chicken. So as athletes, you probably need more like 4 to 5. But if you think about the size of an iPhone, that's probably the size of a portion that you need at one meal. The thing with protein is you can't absorb much more than that. So you can sit down to a 12-ounce steak, but after those first 5 or 6 ounces, the rest of that protein is being stored as fat. So it's not really doing us any good. So more consistency is better than a lot at once. Yeah.
I think that's what happened to me the night before a long run I did. I had a bunch of chicken and beets, and I didn't have any grains or anything. And the next morning I felt so nauseous during the run. Is that why?
Absolutely.
Too much protein.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to talk about because I think the night before a long run is also something you want to practice this weekend. People will learn that you can't really go out to margaritas and burritos the night before a long run. It's not going to go so well. We really want to aim for these really simple carbs. So pasta, brown rice, whole grains, that kind of thing, but pretty more carb heavy. This is a 1/2 cup serving. We probably all need twice this amount at one sitting. So if you think about the size of your fist, that's a good estimate. And obviously that changes based on body size and everything else, but just as a general recommendation, you want to make sure you're at least getting that much of carbohydrate the night before. So potato, any of that stuff, right? But those high fiber foods, beans, raw veggies, that can upset your stomach the next day. So I would say decrease the veggies the night before a run or just do cooked veggies. It's not the time to go crazy. Do have some protein, but you don't need to overload it. Questions on night before meals? And again, I think you'll find what works, Yeah.
Where do lentils fall in? You mentioned beans, the legumes.
Yeah, so they're kind of a protein and a carbohydrate. So they'd be great. They are a little bit higher fiber, so I would watch how much of it you have. Especially if your stomach's used to it, though, you should be fine. It's a great option.
There are porta potties along the west side highway.
Speaking of,
Does try that burrito the night before.
But yeah, that's probably, portion sizes of protein and also fat the night before. I find high fat foods generally upset people's stomachs the next day. So fried foods, just wait till after.
And another thing too, like I usually have to go to the bathroom a lot when I run, like if I drink a lot the morning of. So is it better to drink more the day before and then just have like a few sips of water before a long run?
We definitely want you making sure you're hydrated the day before. It doesn't really change how much you need that day though. There is, I don't know if I wrote it on, I don't think I wrote it on this. Actually, I think I did did I give you guys a hydration handout?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, perfect. I'm sorry, I didn't even talk about this, but that, it does say 2 to 3 hours before or 1 hour before, so that's those recommendations are based on how quickly your kidneys can filter out the water. So I would say, if it's within the hour of the run, stick to less than 8 ounces. And then if you are going to be awake for much longer, you can go up to 16 if it's 3 hours before, but watch how much water you're having, and then you can kind of find that tolerance level. And so the day before doesn't really, unfortunately, translate too much.
For hydration, there's the thing, carb loading, right?
Yeah.
Does that apply then? Like, is that something, pasta all day the day before or something? Like,
Yeah, carb loading's a really,
is it a thing?
it is a thing.
Okay. So I guess, is it something
It's a
we
good
should
thing,
do,
though.
I guess,
It's
that's
a
better
good,
question.
so I would say we don't necessarily need to carb load until kind of down towards November 1st. The thing with carb loading, I'll just say this now and, come November, hopefully you'll remember, but it's not just one day. So carb loading starts on probably the Thursday before the marathon and is going to continue until Sunday. And what it means is basically you're going to be eating carbohydrates more like 75% of your diet instead of the 60. We're not going to increase how much food we're having, we're just going to increase the proportion of carbohydrates and decrease the fat and the protein. So I wouldn't necessarily say you have to start doing that for these runs now, but definitely something to keep in mind. That it does have performance effects, absolutely, because what it does is it really stores everything. And those glycogen stores that we were talking about before, those carbohydrate stores in your body, are fully saturated and ready to go come race day. So yeah, that's a really good question. Remember that. Where were we? Okay, so let's see. We talked about that. Okay, daily diet, biggest thing, keep a food log if you can. If you're having either your weight is changing and you don't want it to, or you're always hungry, keep a 3 to 5 day food log. That will show the patterns for sure. It'll show at least what times you're always hungry, and that usually reflects upon a few hours beforehand. You probably missed something. So at every meal, we want carb and protein and vegetables, and if you didn't get that, you can start to see how that's affecting your daily intake. And the other thing to remember is once you get into the training, mileage isn't going to go crazy high week to week, right? You're going to build slowly. You have this awesome training plan, maybe a mile or 2 miles at a time. That's really only 200 calories extra a week. It's not, that's a granola bar. It's kind of hard to justify sometimes. Just be conscious, we want you fueled, we want you enjoying your food for sure. We just want to make sure that you're not stuck choosing poor nutrition options because you're so hungry. So never let yourself get starting. Preemptive strike against that.
Just during the race, I know you might be just heading towards this topic, but
Yeah.
I can't eat anything when I'm running. I can do the gels and I can do fluids.
Yeah.
But I can't really eat anything. Is that going to be,
Not a problem.
as long as I'm getting enough gel and enough fluids?
You bet. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool.
That's great. So I handed out this lovely race day nutrition sheet. Does everybody have that? Okay. So again, one of the most common things I see is trying something new on race day and not thinking that it would be much of a problem. And something as small as a different flavor can make or break a lot of, stomach issues. So what I want you guys to do is to start thinking about this now. And we want this completely filled out by the time, October 31st comes around, because I don't want any, nutrition is one thing we can't control. We can't control the weather, we can't control, all these other things, but this we can have as a plan and you won't have to worry about it. And I wrote here, pre-race. Does anybody know what time you guys actually start running on marathon day?
Like 11.
It
It
depends.
It depends.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna be
From
10 or 11.
till 11:30, and the fact that you're probably all going to get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock. If you sleep at all at
Don't you have
night.
to be there by 5
You
or
have
6
to, well,
o'clock
if
in
you're
the
taking
morning?
our buses, you have to be there by 5:30 because we leave at 6. So you're up early. And then you probably won't start to run till, as I say, between 10:30 and 11:30. So there's perfect segue to what to do with that nutrition time.
Yeah. Because, especially because, you've been practicing on Saturdays or Sundays or whenever you guys are running, getting up, having a meal and going, right? Not 6 hours in between. So this is a whole different ballgame, and this is something we need to start planning now. You're gonna wanna eat twice that morning. You're gonna have 2 breakfasts. No matter what, it's gonna have to happen. So whether that's one at 5 a.m. and one at 9 a.m., it could be, depending on your size, that could be oatmeal in the morning and then a bagel later on. It could be a half bagel before, half bagel after. Again, this is very individual on how much you need. There's a lot of calculations that we do in terms of how much carbohydrate your body can digest at that time. But start to figure out now what works for you, whether that means you're packing pretzels and bananas and all these little snacks for when you're hanging around on Staten Island. That's great, that's fine, just make sure it works with your stomach. So start thinking about that now. We're gonna wanna eat twice. And I kind of wrote, there's space for the food, space for the fluids, and you can look at that hydration sheet for guidelines there. And supplements would be, if you are a salty sweater and you're gonna be planning on taking self-tabs or something like that, that's where that would go. And then during the race, same idea, hours on the left, carbs, fluids, salt, have it down to a science. Have what flavors you're gonna have when, realize if you're gonna carry them, where you're gonna carry them, we want that all planned out to the T. And post-race, you need a post-race nutrition plan. I just spent all the time talking about how post-race is and post-workout is so important for nutrition. Think about if you're actually running the full 26 miles, your body is going to need nutrition. So I know that they give out protein shakes, I believe it's like a protein Gatorade Recover.
Well, when you finish and you come to the Team for Kids tent, which is all part of your perks for joining Team for Kids, we do have some great food at the tent, so like quick little things to get your energy back, enough to get you home and celebrate or to the next place where you're gonna go. So there will be food in our tent.
Yeah, so that's great. So you guys have little in because
Yeah.
you get food given to you right away, which is awesome.
No champagne.
Yeah, you can get that later. So that's definitely something it sounds like you guys will have planned. But if you're like, oh, my stomach might be iffy and I've always been doing this one Cliff Bar after my runs, I'm gonna, bring that and have it, and then you're set. So be aware of that now. The last thing I will say is gels that have caffeine in them, just be conscious if anyone does use those now. They're totally great, they're totally fine if you drink caffeine normally. If you don't, be conscious it could hurt your stomach. And generally I recommend saving them for that last half of the race. Caffeine does have a positive impact on performance, so it's not a bad thing. We just want to make sure that you don't grab this thinking that, it's kind of a regular one when it does have caffeine and it could upset your stomach. So that's just something also I've seen a lot.
Do the goods have caffeine in them?
Some of them do, depends on the flavor. So that's why, again, know the flavor, know exactly what you're doing. And again, goos every 45 minutes max, I would say, or more frequently would be the recommendation with water.
A whole one every morning?
What's that?
A whole goo every?
Yes, correct.
I don't want to carry a half
You
goo around.
Yeah. Get a little sticky.
It's just not gonna
What
work.
about the chops? Because there's several of them.
Yeah, I believe with the chomps, well, you have to look at the package. It will say the serving, I think it's 3, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, no.
I think it says we're 1.5 hours with each pack.
Yeah, so then probably half the pack.
Okay.
Same with the shot blocks too.
And throughout your training, by the time you get to the marathon, you will realize, you know, in a span of 30 minutes to 45 minutes, which is when you should be refueling, you're going to break that down into every 4 miles, every 5 miles.
Yeah.
Typically, like I do every 5 miles, I'll take a goo. So as I'm coming up to mile 5, I'll have it out, I'll have it ready, take the goo, take the water, I'm good to go. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And you'll have that planned down by November 1.
For sure. Questions? I know I ran through a lot. Yeah.
Supplements, should we be taking any supplements?
Do you have any in mind?
No. Should we be taking?
It's definitely an individual thing. I would probably need to hear more about your daily diet and your medical history and what your goals are.
Like glucosamine or the other one.
Chondroitin, that kind
Calcium
of
tablets.
calcium.
Is it, I mean, you never really get enough working in that.
Right. So I would say probably the top, let's see, 2 supplements that I recommend the most for my athletes are omega-3s because they are anti-inflammatory, and vitamin D. So because we're training in the summer, we hopefully will be getting a lot of vitamin D, but it's very common to be deficient. And vitamin D influences how much calcium you can absorb and therefore how strong your bones are.
So to get the, like right now I'm throwing glucosamine and calcium
Throw it
tablets into me thinking I'm doing good, but should I?
Hey, you know, there's definitely research showing glucosamine for knee pain specifically.
Right.
It is more targeted for knee arthritis pain actually, that it's been shown to be useful. So it's not gonna hurt if you're taking it and you might have some joint pain. That's fine.
Right, but definitely omega-3 and vitamin D.
That's usually what I recommend. Again, it's personal, but yeah.
Omega-3 would be like cod liver oil pills?
Yeah, exactly. Fish oil, flaxseed oil, it comes in a lot of different sources.
What's better? Is it like fish oil, cod liver oil? I heard cod liver oil is better. Is that true?
Minimally, yeah, it might be. Sure, you know. It's all essentially doing the same thing.
Spinach is best.
So, yeah. And I know, oh shoot, I think she left. Anemia was brought up, and irons, you know, that's something that as athletes also, we have more of a tendency for iron to be decreased. When you run, actually the hitting of your heel against the pavement can decrease iron sources in your body, which is really interesting. So iron-rich foods, not only are they like proteins, like steak and all that other stuff, beans are a great one, oatmeal is a great one, iron-rich, iron-fortified cereals are good. You can certainly get it through vegetarian sources, so just to be aware, if you want to.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This is such a key topic because everyone from the elites to the first timers can have their marathon goals derailed by not planning ahead and knowing your nutrition needs. So this is why right now we ask you every long run, start practicing this Saturday. Before Saturday morning, go out and buy a goo, buy a couple of them, try them out, because this is the test. This is when you need to do it so that come November 1, you'll know exactly what your plan is. So, and it's something that you can talk amongst yourselves, which is another great reason why it's so nice to run in a group, because you can say, hey, by the way, are you a sweater? How many times can you say that to a person?
You're
They're like,
salty,
oh,
so
yeah,
you're salty.
yeah. Are you a sweater? And they're like, what color is your pee this morning? And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you asked. So another reason why it's so great to run in a group of like-minded people so that you can share things that you probably would not share with other people. So again, we're so glad you came tonight. We're so glad you're running with Team for Kids. It's going to be an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And